All right, appears to be live and such. I have decided to try leaving the room open, and so we'll see what happens. You can force them to. I have decided to try leaving the room open. Okay. So I have to hit the pause button there. So it's working. All right. You can change the settings so people can't be seen when they come into the room or something. So we'll see if that works, and you know, such. As long as I don't get kicked out of my own room, maybe that'll be good enough. So link the top link below if you want to participate and such in some sort of live form. Um, yes, we don't have to change here. Change the size of this. Sorry, logistics. There's always a little bit of work to do. Get things right. All right, so yeah, I really, it'd be nice to have something pop-up windows. Anyway, there was some interaction that could take place on the subject of physics with people, but it's really hard to have any of that. Um, video exchanges or arguments or discussion or any of that, and it's like there's just pretty much a closed system. Unless you're somebody enough to force the issue. That's sort of the irony. People like Ken Wheeler probably have enough clout where they could um, facilitate the opportunity for more discussion on the subject of physics, and he doesn't do any of that because his own ego is so monstrous that he doesn't apparently think anybody else has anything to contribute on the subject of physics. And it's just kind of amazing. Um, and certainly, even if you believe that, you'd still want the opportunity to, like, even if it was people were opposed to what you were saying, you'd want the opportunity to prove them wrong. And obviously, these people are just afraid of that. So somebody did PM me with more crap about the flat Earth, and they also linked to the old Dr. Quantum video, framed in a religious argument. And I've already done that, been there, done that, a couple of times in terms of pointing out how it's just really bad, even as a representation of conventional physics. It's a lie, but yes, clearly a huge perversion of the actual facts. Um, but on the flat Earth, I just don't see the point of the conversation. I mean, I hate even dignifying it by having to point this out, but it's an insane conspiracy theory to think that every photo from outer space has been faked, that every photo we have of telescopes looking at Saturn and the moon, and that somehow it's all fake, that there aren't spheres all over the place in the solar system. Um, and that's perfectly consistent with how gravity works, and the inverse square law imposes it by clearly. You can't get away from it. Um, just to think all of that science is fake and all those people are in on a conspiracy to fool people. Nobody ever landed on the moon. The space shuttle never existed. All this stuff never happened. It's just so preposterous on its face. And then when you get into the simple experiments you can do, if you've been on a boat, watch the land rise as you're heading for it. You'll see it happen. You'll see the top of the hill show up first and it goes right down, just just like it was you're going over a round curve. And the evidence is overwhelming. It's just silly. So I don't know what you want. I mean, it's just a if I have to have those kind of conversations with people, then there's no point in having conversations because it's I wouldn't have to have them with a 7-year-old. Unless you brainwash a 7-year-old to think everybody's a liar and there's conspiracy theories, the 7-year-old's going to say, "No, I seen a picture of Earth. It's round. I seen the satellite pictures of clouds moving across the Earth. I don't have any doubt. The satellite pictures are insanely perfect evidence of the round Earth, the sphere, quite obviously." So you'd have to convince the 7-year-old that all the people at the Weather Channel and the weather station, and everybody's a liar, and they're all lying for what reason? to sell round Earth souvenirs or something? Bowling balls? They don't want to hurt the bowling ball industry. This is so bad. Yeah, I saw Ken Wheeler's just so bad. I mean, there's no point, right? I can keep making videos, but yeah, it's like his last three videos are just insanely preposterous. First, he claims that they measure the strength of magnets. And so he's claiming that the stronger magnet has a less range to its field, which is just absolutely insanely stupid because that's been tested over and over again. The magnet works by the inverse square law, just like gravity. You can't undo it. Now, all you can do is change the mass of a magnet. So you can shape a magnet where it has different amounts of magnetism in different locations and certainly create results that are confusing. But if you have a standard magnet, two standardly formed or made magnets of this, and one of them is a N35 and one's an N57, much twice as strong. There's not, there's not, you can't undo the law. And so he's just so full of shit. And then he does this stupid thing about seeds growing, and he says he can make better tomatoes. Um, by magnetizing the seeds. Now most seeds do not most. It's well known that grass seeds, for example, are highly magnetic, ferromagnetic, I guess, paramagnetic, well, whatever. They magnetize really easily. So, they use it to actually do the iron filing lining up thing. So they move really well to electric currents and magnetic fields. They're polarized, in other words. Um, so clearly, magnetism can have an effect on seeds. But this idea that the South Pole creates bad tasting food and the North Pole creates good tasting food is just, or vice versa, is just fucking retarded. It's too bad he won't come on the show. He does a live show every day. You do them once in a while, too. Might as well have a show one time. Yeah, well, like I said, he's just a coward. There's nothing you can do about that. I should do mine at the same time he does his, but it's just inconvenient for me. But too bad. I could play his and mock it. But his live shows aren't about physics, right? It's all this camera crap and, you know, girly talk. So, it's not very useful. Not useful at all, actually. Um, but yeah, I mean, I just don't even know, like I said, I've already done so many videos, and he just makes these outrageous claims and he does really poor experiments. And there's nothing you can say. He doesn't seem to understand what the scientific method is. He doesn't seem to understand concepts like controlled experiments and all that kind of stuff. He sits there in his video and he's swirling one jar and doing this, and you're saying, are they really got the same amount of water in them? Do they have the same number of seeds in them? Did you measure any of this stuff? I mean, yeah, he just has no regard for the truth. He just wants to create something that looks like, uh, you know, a fact when it isn't really a fact. Really bad. I mean, like I said, I was going to do that video instead of this, but I just said, the hell with it. Maybe tomorrow or some other time. Because it's all his subjective opinion of what he's seeing. It's just none of it has anything to do with anything real. Um, it's not much you can say. But just the arrogant, he's so arrogant. Like, he invented everything. He sees a YouTube video and copies it and then says, look, I invented it. Yeah, just such bad, horrible. So, should do something besides vaping. you know, I really did plan on having agendas for these rooms. I just happened to be that I was a little bit awake and said, "Oh, I'll do the room." Um, and I really didn't. I'm aware of the fact that I really didn't prepare anything because I just had hoped there would be more happening. Um, I do have the questions video. I should post a link. Maybe yeah, I should do that. I'll make it a permanent link, a default link in all the videos, the new videos, to the question video. I mean, there's just three questions about three anomalies, three problems with the fundamental interpretation of basic experiments, and not a single reply. Nothing explaining why it's okay for Einstein to dispose of the inverse square law when he's calculating gravity's effect on photons, and why the two slit experiment doesn't create graduated patterns with photons, and why interferometers use complex beam splitters when a plain piece of glass will do the same thing. No explanation. Well, Einstein was a bit of an idiot, frankly, but I wouldn't call him an idiot. I wouldn't bother doing that. He was a jerk. Okay. But I'm just saying Einstein's theory, when you really look at it, it is vacuous. And all he's got backing it up is really convoluted math that looks really contrived. Like the math was engineered to mimic, okay, the right answer, not that it is the right answer. So, I don't know what to say on that subject. Like I said, I used to be kind of an Einstein fan, but the more you think about it, I mean, he writes papers in 1905 and then really doesn't do anything for the rest of his life of worth noticing. It's pretty bad. And in a couple of famous examples, makes really bad predictions, like predicting that you'll never create a nuclear bomb. That's pretty bad. Yeah, well, Walter Russell, I don't even know why he's mentioned. I mean, he's a tinfoil hatter. I don't want to be insulting, but he has no competence as a scientist. He's a freaking artist. Let's see. Einstein had to change the whatever that is, the Pythagorean theory for his theory to work. Yeah, well, whatever. Oh, Pythagorean. Well, I mean, obviously, he did a lot of things that no one ever told me about. I mean, I never realized that his theory was that photons think they're in the gravity twice as long because of time dilation, and therefore they're influenced by gravity twice as much, even though by basic measurements with a stopwatch, they weren't in the gravity twice as long. So I don't know how it happens that way. And then this whole idea of no inverse square law. I mean, those are gigantic cheats, in my opinion. Um, I mean, they actually double. You go from 8 million to 1 odds to 4 million to 1 odds to 2 million to 1 odds, in the sense that these are gigantic hunks you're taking out of the impossibility of something. Uh, and to make them possible, to contrive a possibility. And then the evidence is, you know, weak as fuck, even with the cheats. The evidence still sucks. Let's see. What about the guy who challenged you to a debate? That guy has some problems. Yeah, that's the other channel, so it's not really relevant here. Everybody has some problems. Um, but clearly, one of the problems I don't need to deal with is the problem of people whoring for attention. So, yes, I don't need to waste my time on people faking controversy. I'll disagree for the sake of it. It's like I'll cause a traffic accident just to get in the newspaper. I don't need that kind of person in my life. And frankly, I just don't think he has enough life experience or philosophical depth to even touch the subject, even glance at it in an intelligent manner. So, I mean, what's his argument going to be? There's just no evidence that he has done any deep thinking. He's uh, he's a follower, not a leader, and such. Let's see. Yes, Mohawks. Yes. Enough references. No more references to silly people. Uh, Not entirely relevant silly people. So yeah, I just it is. I'm I'm frustrated. Because there's really should be people who they'll go to the trouble to be so insulting to anybody who is challenging physics. And clearly, the problem is a lot of these people are inaccessible. I mean, these people don't um, freely interact, um, to defend their theories. They're not, they're not willing to be tested in any kind of, um, direct way. Like the Miles Mathis types and stuff, he just doesn't deal with any of his criticisms in any, you know, he just doesn't acknowledge their existence. Um, so, I mean, I would think that would be a little frustrating for the people defending conventional physics, is the fact that a lot of tinfoil hatters won't aren't willing to be exposed to their greater knowledge and their great understanding of the truth as they know it. But there's no, like I said, I haven't found any evidence that they have any courage, because they seem just as unwilling to engage in any kind of conversation except with the most fringe. I mean, I could actually see them having a panel at some scientific forum where they actually might take on the flat earth theory or something, you know, because yeah, it's a stupid theory. It's easy, it's low hanging fruit, as they say. But they don't seem to have any, all these they have all these forums and all these talking head productions, and they never invite anybody who might challenge their fundamental assumptions. I mean, there's nothing. And maybe it's just because all the challengers are too tinfoil hatty. I don't know, but it's got to take. I think it needs to take place, just because it's just, to me. I mean, I'm just saying, it's so fucking obvious that all of physics is just based on these fundamental assumptions. And if those assumptions are wrong, they're not heavily evidenced assumptions. They're just really weakly evidenced assumptions. The evidence is weak that founds their basic assumptions, their elemental fundamental assumptions. And if those are wrong, I mean, they're in catastrophically, they're out on a limb that doesn't have any tree. You know, it's not connected to the tree. I mean, it's you know let's see, for me to be able to debate anything, I have to feel like I know enough about it to back it up. I feel like a lot of people these days don't know enough about anything to be able to stand up. um, yeah, well, there's people who seem to know stuff. I mean, Hathaway's not ignorant, but he's just emphatic in the sense that he says because they came up with their theory first, that's the default, and anything that's going to challenge the default, I guess, has to show up with some kind of alien's endorsement or something. I mean, you actually have to produce something miraculous in terms of evidence, when clearly there's not going to be something miraculous in terms of evidence besides the fact that you fix all of the paradoxes that the current theory has. I mean, all you can really do is fix the problems it has and use that as evidence, because there's not going to be some, I'm not going to find I don't think I'm going to find a magic way to detect gravity. Now, the movement of photons over distance, that one I might be able to do something with to prove velocity, to prove movement. But yeah, it's going to be hard to come up with an experiment. Um, it's going to provide this decisive proof um, because the physics is, the very small stuff isn't measurable. I mean, you can only do it indirectly. So, it's going to be the same weak evidence. It's just that it's tied in a better, it's the same dots you have to connect. It's just a much better connection that creates a more reasonable pattern. And I'd say the unification is the more rational pattern. Getting rid of particle wave duality is the more rational pattern. But that's all you can argue. But I mean, they're just emphatically glued to this idea that um, tradition or something. I mean, it's the home team, or I don't know what they argue. It's hard to understand just because the whole the conventional. I mean, I said it in the last video on the overview video. I mean, there's nothing really to me that's at all appealing about the idea of bent space being an answer. And there's the idea of time being a dimension doesn't make any sense to me at all. And then when you get to this quantum mechanics, this Heisenberg bullshit, that doesn't make any sense. Huygens doesn't make any sense. I just don't know why they're so glued to these things that seem, and both of those theories don't even connect to each other. So not only do the theories independently sound kind of wacky and silly, they don't even mix. They don't even provide any opportunity for unification. So, that's kind of depressing. That's right, I suppose. Even talking about anything and asking questions can still lead to great things. Everything doesn't have to be a debate. Well, I don't know about that. I haven't found any. I mean, I hate this, hate to say it, but I mean, I don't. My only purpose is really to debate, to defeat the thing I think is rubbish. It's not like I think there's something out there that's right, besides the stuff I'm saying. So I don't know what I have to say that I haven't had too many conversations that are at all enlightening. They're just this frustrating process of trying to get through the layers of bullshit that somebody else believes in. And so whether it's the religious kooks or these minions for the conventional theory, um, they don't bring anything to the table from it's at all useful from my perspective. I mean, all I see in the world are the obstacles to the truth being respected. And I don't see anybody fighting for the truth, frankly, um, or fighting for any. Let me think how to say that. Anything deeper than obvious things like saying, "Well, God is a silly explanation of reality." They might say that, but they don't follow it up with the obvious conclusion that, oh, well, without a God, we're in really big trouble because now we're just part of a big giant meat grinder. There's no decency or fairness or deserve or anything working in this system except for this grind the meat. That's all there is. And that's pretty depressing. And they don't even go to that level of adding a little value to the thought idea, whatever, that yes, God is a silly explanation for our existence. And they just never take it any further and recognize that, well, if God is silly, we're in deep shit. Yeah. But anyway, I know when you're talking to someone about something and you realize something you forgot or you find something out you never knew, it can be helpful having any type of conversation at times. Yeah. Well, I'm just not too keen on it. Just through my own experience, I just don't. Frankly, I like I said, it's just It's digging trenches. It's working at the sewage plant. I just see it as this terrible chore of locate the bullshit in the other person's perception and try to pull the bullshit out of their brain. And it's just frustrating as hell because they just keep clinging to it. Uh, well, you're not the only one now. I'm simply interested in debunking the second law of thermodynamics. Universe can't function with negative entropy. Well, yeah, I don't. What's your argument? That it seems obvious the universe is functioning. So I'm just saying there's clearly in the big picture of the universe, there's some other mechanism that's kept the, at least for a period of time, um, maintained um, uh, the thermal condition. But you could argue that maybe 10 billion years ago the universe was hotter. Why can't you argue that? And that it is, in fact, getting colder. I mean, why isn't that a reasonable argument? Obviously, time scales, we're on this little, you know, we're we're closer to the small scale time scale than the big scale time scale. Although we are close to the middle. I'm just saying that, you know, I don't know what your argument is. Why would you debunk a a a theory that can never be completed? I mean, no one can argue they know exactly what is beyond 14 billion light years away. They can't make those arguments yet. But whatever. Seems a weird thing to be focused on. That's all. That's what you're interested in. I don't know why your interest is that specific. This is where we get into the bullshit thing. Is you have to say, okay, now what's the agenda? Why would somebody be obsessed with thermodynamics when we know that the basic tendencies are true? Um, we know that energy conservation is a reality. So why do you even why waste time arguing about the fact that we don't know, on some scales, um, like the cosmic background radiation or something. We don't know what exactly that is. They can only make up stories about how the universe expanded and somehow the radiation stayed where it was, and that's why it takes 14 billion years for it to get here, or some kind of bullshit. I don't even understand their explanation, frankly, but it doesn't matter. I'm just saying we know it exists. So we know there's a mechanism that created it. I just don't. Why would somebody have that narrow focus? So then I have, my answer to the question is it's probably because they want to come up with some reason why there's a God. What else? Why else would somebody be worried about breaking some law of physics? I'm just saying the laws of thermodynamics are just like the laws of conservation. They seem very logical laws. They don't seem like illogical laws. So why would you be opposed to the ones that sound logical? Free energy. Well, again, the word free is, you know, you shouldn't have to be a physicist to understand, but there is no free. Okay, there's no free anything. Never existed as a concept. It's some idealistic illusion of a reality, but it has nothing to do with a real concept. There's just absence of specific confinements, but there'll never be free anything. And frankly, we already know where there's a ton of energy in atoms and stuff, but we know it can't be free, okay? And even if you find some other source of pressure in the universe besides inside the atom or whatever, it's always going to be a challenge to tap it. You know, being able to tap, powerful sources of energy is always going to be challenging because you could get blown up. I mean, that's the rules of energy. But this idea that you're just going to, like I said, Nuclear is free, okay, in the sense that there's a ton of it, but yeah, it's not free to tap it. It's like you can't just put leeches on the atoms and suck the energy out. Maybe we could, just we don't have the technology yet. So maybe they can come up with some better way to do fission and fusion, and then it'll be more free, the energy. But just in the way you utilize energy, you always have the problem of the waste part of it too, because how you collect it, usually energy is not going to be in some pure form like pure ultraviolet light or pure this or pure that. Where however you're going to tap the energy, you're going to end up with stuff you don't want, the radioactive bits and stuff. And so you're always going to end up with waste probably, and that you have to deal with. And like carbon based fuels, you have the chemical waste. But it is curious that you would bring it up. Is it's like, why do I need a theory that they're see, he's basically arguing something like, I want to get rid of entropy because I'm going to argue there's perpetual motion inside of atoms that creates untold amounts of energy. But essentially we already have that. Atoms are already pressurized, so they already hold an awful lot of energy. I mean, it's not an infinite amount, but it's a lot. So I mean, why would you even need to get rid of thermodynamics to get to free energy? Because we already have so much energy in the universe. It's already a lot of energy. Yeah. So I don't see how the changing the laws of thermodynamics would do you any good. But it's such a fundamental argument. It's like the push pull argument. I can just make the logical argument that the pull is an illusion and there's only the push. And you can sort of do that with the pressure argument that there's so many people like the Jeff Yee guy with his theory. He thinks the energy is inside the little whatever he calls it, the ultimate particle, and that it's vibrating with this core energy. So all the energy in the universe is basically a symptom of this vibrating particle. And it just seems so much more logical to say, the energy comes from the outside, doesn't come from the inside. But whatever. He's curious. But he see it's like this guy, the Jeff Yee guy, he wants to change physics because he thinks that if people have a different understanding of physics, that somehow we'll find free energy. I just, I guess, I don't know. I don't know why people think that way. I mean, there's lots of stored energy. It's just, I don't know, just have to recognize that we can collect some of the stored energy fairly efficiently. And we don't need free energy. We just need, you know, not too expensive energy. But then the whole, look what they do with the energy. Like the solar panel argument I've made so many times. Um, here you have a. It's probably not even a cost-effective source of energy. Okay, frankly, it's cost 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 times more than oil to extract the energy out of solar. But let's just say the photovoltaic cells were much more efficient than that, and it actually made sense to invest money in them. Um, instead of clean coal, let's say. I mean, clean coal would probably be more practical than photovoltaic cells. But let's just forget that argument. look how they utilize it. So they take a resource and they implement it in a insanely stupid manner where they put these things on roofs that don't move with the sun and that are rarely pointed even at the right angle towards the sun. The roof slope isn't even the right angle. Um, so it doesn't tilt with the sun's movement from summer to winter, and it doesn't move with the sun. So you're cut its performance in half right there, and then you put um, inverters on every single 20 panels. You put an inverter for every 20 panels, which is another insane waste. Um, so, I mean, if you just did it, if you put the panels on a farm and made it so they could follow the sun and they're easy to maintain, you could get like 70% more energy. So you get like, 70% more energy out of them, and it costs you less. And when things like that take place, what do you want free energy for? Because they'll obviously not make it free. It'll obviously be very expensive energy. So, what is the amount of energy in a potato? Well, obviously it has different kinds of energy. It has the chemical energy, which is the bonds between the atoms, and so you can create ions and you can, create some electricity and some heat and, different forms of energy. But obviously inside the atoms of the potato, there's all that nuclear energy. So, you know, there's many zillions of megatons of energy in a potato. Can I ask a few questions? Well, it seems obvious that's what people are doing, so that would be a. I don't know why you have to ask, but go ahead and ask. There is light everywhere. We should be able to collect the background radio waves day and night. But you're not getting it. Radio waves don't move electrons aggressively enough. Um, so they're horribly inefficient. They're heating the atmosphere as they move through the atmosphere. So radio waves won't do. And what are you talking about? Radio waves from space? I mean, the amount of microwave background radiation isn't enough to cook a hot dog. So you're really going to be out of luck trying to collect that. Hi Gary. The Sage kinetic physics model proposed yesterday in the comments. What do you think about it? I've already talked about Lesage. I mean, this came up when in the very beginning I proposed a particle gravity theory, and somebody informed me, "Hey, you're bringing up a 300-year-old dead idea." And so that's when I first heard of Lesage. It's not even Lesage gravity. It's actually some guy 300 years ago called La Fontenay or whatever, French guy, and he had actually corresponded with Newton, and Newton liked the idea and actually signed his paper. And so, but it's obviously too simple a particle model. So clearly, I'm for a particle model. It points out the point I'm making that's obvious is that you have this idea of mock gravity. You can create an external force made of ultra mundane small particles will push two things together. That's just a fact. So it works just like gravity. It creates the inverse square law. Sorry, an asshole came into the room. So that's one of the reasons why you can't post the link. Active link is, yeah, it's loud music playing, blah, blah, blah. He's supposed to get into the room muted, so muted to you, but it obviously wasn't muted to me, which is a problem. I guess I could turn my speakers off because if no one's talking in the room. Well, anyway, even if somebody got into the room, I guess I'd have to close the room to new ones. I don't know. It's probably just I'll probably just go back to the old. You have to ask for the link. All right. Just irritating. I mean, people are just so sick. Sick little tiny dicked brains. Um, let's see. Are any such spectrum? Well, that's not really helping me much. I really don't want to go back to previous comment. There's light everywhere. We should be able to collect the background radio waves day or night. So again, there's not that much. Light's not a very Light's not a very robust representation of the energy in the universe. It's this tiny little fraction of the energy in the universe. But anyway, um, there's just not, there's just not enough radiation. I mean, if you look outside at night, it's not too much stuff going on there. It gets really cold, and that's sort of evidence there's not much heat, you know, uh, available from starlight. Anyway, um, I mean, you have to be close to a sun, and obviously, as we've already mentioned, all the oil in the coal is basically solar energy. So yeah, the sun has produced a lot of energy over 4 billion years on the surface of the Earth, but it's only 1,000 watts per square meter, so not that easy to collect. Let's see. As you know, if you have a shadow between two bodies, the amount of tons between them will be smaller density than outside. I'm just saying that's the basic argument, but it's more complicated in the sense that you have to understand the force as being something absorbed as in the quantum manner, in the sense that it's in the Einstein manner that the, the bits all have, well, he doesn't really say that. I'm just saying you're just collecting a, a discrete corpuscle of momentum. And when you absorb something, that's how you gain acceleration. To maintain acceleration, you have to trap it permanently. So you can be accelerated by a force hitting you. But if you want to have velocity that you can maintain, you have to have a mechanism for it. Have a control. See, there's supposed to be some button where you can just hit the button and they disappear, but there's no button where they disappear. So I have to go to the trouble of hitting a menu to eject them. Much trouble. So no more open links. All right. I don't know why YouTube leaves a mechanism this broken. I mean, why would they let people do this? It's just so stupid. Another waste. More just there can't be any good reason. All the reasons have to be bad reasons. Somehow YouTube wants to keep things broken and dysfunctional. Somehow they make more money that way by letting lunatics run the show. I'm not sure if you covered this yet, but do we store charge in batteries via imbalance of the force bit? No, not in a sense. You store it by trapping it. So we're back to the cul-de-sac argument. The pressure you're pushing in the form of electrons moves the electrons closer to each other. But technically, to keep that pressure, there has to be a trap to keep the energy inside. So if you revert everything to little tiny bits and understand that's what the force is, those forces have to have some mechanism where they're trapped going back and forth or they're trapped in a circle essentially. So yeah, that's all. I don't think I need to say anything more than that. Um, the back and forth argument kind of solves the problem because you can sort of understand that if something's bouncing back and forth, it's going to push the battery this way just as much as it pushes it that way. So it's not going to move anywhere. It's just going to back and forth. But that's how you have to trap the energy. All right. So you already talked about if you consider a hollow Earth, just an example, the shadow will mean that there's a less tons in the hollow Earth. No, frankly, it doesn't um, mean any of that. You don't need to have velocity in that case, because again, it's equal from both sides. And what you're really talking about is no matter where your position is, you have to sort of, I drew a picture of it, but you have to kind of understand that in a circle, okay, you could be closer to this side. But if you're closer to this side, then like if I go a 170-degree arc or something, I could only arc into a tiny percentage of the matter. So a 170-degree arc would only hit a tiny percentage of that circle. It actually it's a 180-degree, but I'm just trying to cut it into something you can visualize. And from this other side, though, the arc hits everything, all this matter. So although this matter is further away and creating less gravity or less shadow, you have to add up the entire shadow created by that entire surface compared to the little shadow created by this surface. And that will always be equal. So no matter where you go, that will always be equal. One side, even though you're closer to it and it's creating a darker shadow, the other side is exposing you to more shadow. So when you add up all that shadow, it adds up to a darker shadow just as dark. And the answer is always a little bit more complicated than simply saying high pressure, low pressure. But anyway, consider right. Everyone complains about Google Hangouts. I'm really surprised they haven't done anything about it yet. Yeah, well, I'm just saying it's. I used to like having open rooms, but there was no point in having them anymore because the trolls owned it. They just destroyed the function of the conversation. You can't have a conversation when somebody can jump into the room and make noise. I mean, it's fucking idiotic. And then they can actually kick you out of your own room. I mean, if they have enough troll power. And it's just like I'm just saying clearly maybe it costs YouTube too much. They don't want to make this free. I don't know. I mean, I would pay actually. I would actually pay YouTube $10 a month if I could actually just to stop the assholes from getting in the room. I mean, it just ruins the functionality. It's just a useless. So all it turns into is blog TV. If you remember the old blog TV, so everybody just reads comments and talks to the screen, and just the whole idea of having open rooms is destroyed, and for no good reason. Anyway, it's just fuck Google in the ass till dead. The times get trapped. Look, I call them their bits now. So if you people could get the thing right, okay? There's force bits. So it'll make things clear, because now we're actually going to say the word force. And we'll know what we're talking about. So there's force bits. That's all of the electromagnetic spectrum, the little gravitons and the magnetons, right? All the little bits moving the speed of light. Okay, and then there's matter bits, and that's electrons and protons. Uh, and lattice of the matter, yes. Well, that's the basic idea. Is the force is between. Again, I can't. I've explained it 4 million times, but yeah, the black force. The electron force reflects off of electrons, so that force can get trapped between electrons, and the proton force reflects between protons. And when the opposite forces happen, it leaves perpendicularly. I've already explained this so many times. All right, the sound have changed to bad. 2/5. It is just me. It might be. Yeah, I don't see any. Tap the microphone. I don't know if that'll help any. Can't do much about what happens. I mean, obviously the big noise came back into my microphone, and it might have fucked the mic. So I don't know if I can unfuck it. There, did I unfuck it? There's not much I can do. If you get a peak in the volume, it'll destroy it fucks with my mic. I could probably unplug it. We'll try that. Probably a dangerous thing to do, but we'll try it. Let's see if it goes back on. Appears to have. I don't know if it's any better or not. I can't tell. They just give me little green dots. Don't say much. All right. The second. Okay, now we already did that. All right. Yes, but matter blocks deflects the outside tons. No, I just use bits. But anyway, yes, well, some of them reflect, but a reflection means you absorb the momentum. So that's what a reflection is. I mean, when something reflects, you're basically you're exchanging this direction for this direction. So you're doing the Newton thing. You're giving back this way and you're keeping this way. You know, so a reflection is an absorption in a sense. Um, no, wouldn't that necessarily imply that there's less tons on in the hollow Earth? Well, as pointed out, though, you're moving two directions. So every time you absorb energy in this direction, you're also absorbing energy in the opposite direction. So yes, you're wobbling, but you're not, there can't be a functional less because you're not actually maintaining a velocity in a direction. And that's what that would require. So theoretically, it's all about imbalances. It's not really a more less argument. The less is always got to be because something moved in a direction. So it can only create more and less for a moment in time. And then once that moment's over, it's creating more, because it's releasing the energy going the other way. So when this is vibrating back and forth, it's absorbing energy this way. And then when it goes back this way, it's releasing energy that way. Get it? I mean, it's only when you can maintain a velocity or maintain a pressure that you can create a permanent imbalance, so to speak. You have to trap it. You have to create mass in a sense. I mean, now it gets dangerous. But mass is really a measure of the force trapped. Yes, but matter block. I mean, you could argue that protons and electrons on their own don't have any mass, and the only thing that makes them massive is when they're put in proximity to each other and there's force between them. All right. Yes, but matter blocks, deflects the outside tons. No, it wouldn't. No, that's the specific point I'm trying to establish. Well, let me just establish as a fact that you can only create a permanent shadow for a specific amount of time. So while something's moving, it's shadowing this. So when something's moving towards it, this is shadowing. But as soon as if it stops moving, not shadowing anymore. So obviously when something's rotating, it keeps moving towards, technically. So it keeps shadowing. And when things are spinning and they're also pressurized, there's always stuff moving towards the center. So that's how you create the pressure. Stuff has to keep moving towards the center. If it stops moving towards the center, then the Earth would expand because of the pressure. So it obviously keeps moving towards the center. I don't know how else to explain that. That'll have to do. That's the specific. Okay, Forever Wolf Films. Hey, Amanda, I got your Skype thing. I will take care of I'll take care of my stuff. Don't worry about it. I don't know why I don't ever respond to anything. I just do avoid everything's. I'm such a procrastinator. You should probably consider doing your live rooms on a backup channel just in case some troll decided to do something bad. At least your whole channel won't be in jeopardy. Well, I should be okay because frankly, you didn't see the trolls nobody saw the trolls that popped in here, right? You shouldn't have seen them. I mean, they're supposed to be hidden. Uh, so they really can't do anything. But the point is I'm not going to leave a public link. It just doesn't work. I mean, YouTube pretends to give you the power to prevent them from doing stuff, and it just doesn't. So what's the point? Clearly, it just doesn't work. Oh, good. So at least I know how to fix the sound when it goes bad. Yeah, I don't know why my mic does that. I did it once before, where it was some, I don't know whether I got too loud or something. I mean, maybe I banged on the table. I think I banged on the table and the mic went to, yeah, it lost half its volume for no reason. The good news is I found a little Chinese sound card, for $1 that seems to work on the other Linux computer. So I'm pretty hopeful it'll work on this one. So I'll get another one of those. I mean, it's $1. It's just ridiculous. I can buy a sound USB sound card for $1. Why have a fucking sound card? It's apparently, and it actually works. So it's just funny. Yeah, it doesn't happen except so it's something Google must do. So they're limiting they're deciding something's too loud and then they're changing the gain, but they're not readjusting it back on again, which is the funny part, right? So when the mic gets too quiet, they don't fix that. It does seem a silly. It doesn't happen in other rooms. It only happens when I'm in the live room and such. But I would like to, I got to find somebody who has a degree in physics, like some kind of degree, like spent at least a couple of years doing physics, so they have some knowledge of the experiments and can have some hope of having a conversation about why they're so convinced by this mush. But so far, I can solicit no participants. You'd think there'd be a ton of physicists now just because, physics got very popular in the last 20 years. You'd think there'd be plenty of people out there, with unusable physics degrees. Yeah, well, I live close to a couple of, there's a couple of good colleges in New Jersey, but they don't have any. There's no way to access anything. They don't have any. They're totally unreceptive to having their physics challenged. That's the problem. All right. So if bodies are not moving, there's no shadow. Well, again, it's as I pointed out, there's still a shadow being created because of the pressure inside the earth. So the earth itself, the stuff on the surface of the earth, although we don't look like we're moving, we are being accelerated 10 meters per second per second. We are actually pushing into the earth at that amount of pressure constantly. So in a sense, we are moving. Okay. I don't know how else to say it. We don't look like we are, but we are. The matter inside of us goes down more than it goes this way. Let's see, the force going through us. I don't know how to say it. Yeah, that doesn't. I mean, clearly it transfers. The force going through me goes through my matter, pushes it down, and it pushes into the ground. Now, I'd argue that some of my matter bounces back up because the ground pushes back up. So for me, there's a net balance. But for the ground, there isn't, if you get me. It has to, everybody transmits the pressure to the one loser in the very middle. And he's the one where the electrons are getting highly pressurized. So in the very center of the Earth is the highest pressure, atomic, atom pressure, molecular pressure. I guess it's nuclear pressure. I don't know, but I'm just saying it's a. So clearly, I'm just saying there is movement inside the Earth in both of these directions. So technically, the Earth is moving both ways, if I could say that. So it's creating a shadow both ways because it's technically the stuff inside of it is actually moving in more than it moves out. It moves in faster. It's maybe speed is the way to look at it. I'm moving more mass faster in, and it's leaving slower out. Think of it that way. So more is going in than is coming out. Probably another way to say it. Yeah, it's the best I can do for now. There's no shadow. I'm about to do my physics, something in the way degree. Do the degree. That's funny. Um, I'll talk to you in a year or so. Yes, well, I mean, you should be competent enough to do it now, but fine. What about the comment I left yesterday? I don't even know what that means. The comment I left yesterday. What about the comment I left you? Oh yeah, I'm supposed to remember. Oh, that was that really bad comment. Yeah, sorry. I don't know if I'm going to bother reading it. Look, you can't. So he's playing a game in the comment of, let's pretend that we have three things. We have distance, and we have speed, and we have time. And let's say we'll make this one a constant, and we'll make these two variable, and then we'll make all these two constant and this one variable, and playing games like this. So like you could have the same universe if distance was a constant. Well, distance can't be a constant, obviously. You know, two things are always different distances apart, so that doesn't work. You can only go by measuring distance as a constant, and clearly that sort of makes sense that, well, why would I play this game that the universe is shrinking and growing into this pen is actually getting really huge and then it gets really small every time somebody does an experiment? That's almost like getting into quantum woo bullshit, that I'm making new universes with every interaction. I mean, clearly every experiment can't create a different sized universe. So we kind of know that distance is a constant. You can't fuck with a millimeter is a millimeter is a millimeter. It doesn't get, millimeters don't shrink, millimeters don't expand. Um, and it wouldn't work if you made it like the whole universe expands and contracts, because obviously it can't do that for every simple experiment. Every time I do some experiment, I can't change the size of the whole universe, because then somebody else could be doing an experiment at the same time. And those two experiments, you can't change what a millimeter means here. And then my next door neighbor has a millimeter that means some other distance. You couldn't do the resizing. So anyway, that's why I didn't bother with your comment. Is because I think it's just playing a game to pretend you have the same universe if you change the constants. You know, change which one's a standard constant. I'm just saying the whole point of a constant is they're all constants. Distance is a constant, time is a constant, and speed is a constant. None of them fluctuate in any way. They're all constants. So, you know, they're how they're measured. So I'm just saying there's no game to be played. Their physics is the physics that says these are variable constants, that time is somehow adjustable, that space, whatever that is. Space has to be distance. You do understand that, right? So you use the word space. Space can't be a constant because nothing, how can nothing be a constant? It has to be distance that's a constant. So I'm just saying the way you phrased it, it's just a game. You're just playing a semantics word game to, you know, and it's, to me, it means nothing to me because I don't think constants are, I don't think there's variable constants. I don't think time is variable. I don't think distance is variable. And I don't think speed is variable in terms of how you measure it. There's no measurement problem. Maybe try to communicate with foreign scientists. I don't know. I haven't closed the door to foreigners. I invite them in. So, I mean, obviously, I can't. What? I'm supposed to learn how to speak Chinese. I'm not going to do that. Let's see. I kind of wish that I did that Saturday thing. Yeah, I got to remember to do that tomorrow morning. Got it Saturday already. Today, I got to remember to do that 10 o'clock in the morning. Um, and so it's good. At least it's a forum for people to talk about their own little tinfoil hat theories and stuff. But the funny thing is the guy who moderates it, he kind of thinks if there was more participants, it would be better. And it's like you can just smell that it would turn into shit. As soon as you get too many people talking, you're really the conversation is over, because people just keep going in different directions, and you can never resolve anything at all. Oh dear. Eric Weinstein talks about how physics might need a new, I don't know what it, oh, lone genius. Um, I'm trying to think who Eric Weinstein is. It's not the old guy, right? I don't, if it's the old Weinstein guy, he says lots of things that don't make much sense. That everything's a metaphor, and there's, people misunderstand. We don't really mean space is bent, or we don't really mean that, well, he's more into the quantum mechanics crap. But I mean, just saying, it's just like, well, he's basically admitting that you've completely broken all vocabulary, and you're just playing these idiotic games with your multiverses and all your bullshit when you don't even believe they're real things. You just believe they're mathematical placeholders. Hey, Tyler. Yeah, yeah, uh, you gotta, Tyler guy, you just kind of gotta relax a little bit and try to get your basic life figured out first, and then worry about physics. But you gotta have you can't do everything at once. Anyway, okay, I'm trying to establish the terminology. You talked about moving bodies, so with that established, if they are moving and are vibrating, the absolute amount of force bits is smaller between. Well, I thought I explained it as best I could. I'm saying that the universe is sort of a pattern illusion. The only thing that's really moving is patterns. You can't. So, let's see. The matter bits are only moved by force. So force has to move a matter bit. So if you just kind of understand it that way, then any movement that matter bits have is being created by force bits hitting them. And in a sense, that's an absorption of a piece of force. Um, let's see how else to explain it. So I'm just going with that basic argument. You can sort of understand that if you're moving a matter bit, you had to absorb a bunch of force going one way to do that. And that means that force didn't get where it was going. So something had to slow it down. It didn't get there. It was clearly absorbed for a period of time while the thing is moving. And if you just understand it that way, that the matter bits are like measuring tools for the force bits. They're really telling you what the force bits are doing. That's all I can do. Yeah, the many clocks in the kitchen, they just fight. No one makes a dish people can take. Something like that. Photons time travel. Well, that's just nonsense. But whatever. Quantum. Woo bullshit. Ha ha ha. Years ago, there was quantum experiment that got popular because it suggested the future determines the present. Yeah, well, obviously, look, Feynman had nonsense theories. They're just nonsense metaphors. I mean, Feynman had this idea that one electron was in every place in the universe at once, forever, because it just jumped, time traveled all over the place. I mean, this is just silly. There's a ton of dumb looking articles on it. Yeah, I'm just saying their foundation to their physics is bad enough. So I'm just saying I'm sticking with, let's just do the foundational physics. Obviously, the branches they're way out on, they're just ridiculous, and they're all made to be impossible to disprove. They're all out of the gaps kind of solutions. I can't prove the non-existence of a multiverse. Yeah, sure. I'm hoping for the direct yes no answer. I am wrong for asking that. My bad. Um, uh, no, you're not wrong for asking. I'm just trying to give you the explanation. The explanation is that you're the universe is what we see because the matter bits get moved. We couldn't see the force without the matter bits. So I'm just saying, you know, if you want to follow the pattern, the idea of the pattern is made out of the matter bits, and the matter bits are trapping forces in directions. That is, it traps them in spirals, it traps them in closed systems. So that force is obviously trapped. That means it can't be someplace else where it would have gone if it was going in a straight line. So, yes, there is an imbalance in the force. There has to be an imbalance created for you to create a shadow. So, yes, the shadow is an absence of force that would have been, but isn't because it got absorbed by a piece of matter somewhere that's moving. I'm just arguing that clearly the two forces can be, the two absences can be equally balanced. You can have an imbalance at two shadow states, and therefore you won't see the movement because it's moving just as much this way as it's getting moved this way. So you're back to nothing. How I yeah, I think that answers your question. So I'll just say yes. That'll be my answer to your question. If you want a yes or no. Well, I don't know. Trust what mathematics? As I've just pointed out with the double slit experiment, the math doesn't even do the pattern correctly, and in the two slit math, they don't even have the width of the slit in the math. As I pointed out in Einstein's lensing math, they don't apply the inverse square law, and they pretend that photons are magically in the gravity twice as long when they're not. I'm just saying, what do you mean trust what mathematics? The whole point is there, well, whatever. I don't even want to get into it. Mathematics is not a description of why things happen. It's not even a good description of how. It's just an idea where you connect the relationships that exist between variables in a system. But it doesn't mean because you have a formula, you've accounted for all the variables, or that you've accounted for the variables properly. Like in the double slit experiment, for example, where they call it the wave equation, when all it really is the angle equation. There's no wave in it, there's a sine theta, an angle. That's what's in the equation. It's an angle. So I'm just saying, trust what mathematics? Trust when they call it a wave equation when it's really an angle equation? Fuck. Let's see, like trapped people in a bus route. You can't see the people, but the buses. I don't even know what that means. Like people trapped in a bus route. You can't see the people, but the buses. Whoa. No, I'm totally not. That didn't translate properly. How does gravity work with Jupiter being a gas giant? I'm just curious. Well, it's clearly still really massive, so it's really big, so there's lots of matter in it. And it's also clearly like anything like the sun, it's pressurized. All the little bits are moving towards the center, essentially. So I don't know what you want me to explain. I mean, the sun is a gas giant. I mean, there's nothing. Gas giant doesn't mean it doesn't have gravity. But the trick is the surface gravity on the sun is only 8 times. So the sun is a million. You could put a million Earths inside of the sun. Yet the surface gravity on the sun is only 8 times the gravity on Earth. Only 8 times. So it's clearly not very dense, the matter. So in a sense, the inverse square law is being applied to the density of the sun as inside the sun itself. And the surface gravity is fairly weak. All right, how does gravity work with, no, I did that. So yes, to make sure I have this right, there is an imbalance in force. So if you have two suns, then the absolute amount of force bits is less between, yes. Yes, I'm just going to argue, and they're going to move towards each other. If they're not moving towards each other, then they don't have any gravity, that the gravity is so weak that some other force is taken over, but they should move towards each other because of that absence of force. But again, the force is created by each one. There's not some one force. Each object creates gravity. It's induced. The Earth absorbs energy that would hit the sun. That energy doesn't hit the sun moves essentially. Its center of gravity moves a little bit towards the Earth. When the sun moves towards the Earth, it absorbs energy that would have hit the Earth. It doesn't hit the Earth now, so now the Earth moves towards the sun. It's inductive. Let's see. Would we have to hop over the asteroid belt? Tyler, you're not making any sense. What the hell are you fucking talking about? What the hell is that? We have to hop over the. What are you talking about? I mean, no offense. Whatever that is, I don't even know what that means. I apologize if this is frustrating. Well, I've sort of drawn it, but I mean, I understand you're getting into the details. I'm just saying, as I pointed out, the details are a little more elaborate than just push. I'm just saying you can't just say it bangs into. It's a little more complicated than that. Physicists don't claim to know what quantum mechanics is. I mean, I didn't even get into the fact that the real thing is happening on the electron proton level, and so it gets even more complicated. But anyway, physicists don't claim to know what quantum mechanics is. Well, they do that as a joke, really. The math works. Well, again, that doesn't work. So they claim no, the math doesn't work. The whole point I'm pointing out is the math doesn't work in the two-slit or the single-slit experiment. The math says the photon should create a nice gradual pattern. It doesn't. Fuck. I point out how they call it a wave equation, and there's no wave in it. There's an angle in it. And again, you keep the math works. No, it doesn't. Shit. So they're content with that. No, they're content with something that doesn't work. Exactly. What's the math for the interferometer? We haven't seen that math, have we? Show me the math for the interferometer. There's no math for it. It's a complete bullshit mechanism. They haven't acknowledged what their beam splitter is doing, which is not creating two equal beams. Oh, damn it. Interpretation is up to philosophers of physics. It's just such a fuck you in that rhetoric. You're going to make a lousy physicist. There's no such thing as philosophers of physics, for fuck's sake. Physics and philosophy are two separate subjects, like physics and biology or physics and chemistry. They're not the same fucking subject. You can't have a philosopher of physics. It's like saying I have a biologer of chemistry. shit. Sci-fi. Yeah, I don't know, Tyler. Just whatever. Go take a nap. This is not. I can't. What do you expect me to say? Sci-fi. What does that mean to me? Sci-fi. Hello. You can't run in space, so you can't hop. Well, yeah. Don't talk to Tyler until he says something reasonable. Now, obviously, if the two suns are equal, the same, and you place a planet exactly between them, obviously it wouldn't move to either sun because the forces balance out. Yes, there's a point in space between the moon and the Earth where there's no gravity in either direction. You should ask your professor sometimes about whether the pattern is smooth or not smooth. Yeah, so it would be good if you pose my three questions to any professor. I would love it to death. I would love to hear the professor's answer to the facts. Uh, they might be trolls and without 50-50 screen to agree with people and illustrate equations to make clear for any viewer how the fuck can anyone know what's going on for fuck's sake. I don't know what that means. They might be trolls and without a 50-50 screen to argue with people and illustrate equations or make it clear. I don't know what the hell that is. Yeah, you shouldn't push it too much. What he's saying there. Sorry. Okay. Well, whatever. I have a specific agenda. I'm not, I'm really, I'm really not looking to educate people. I'm really looking to be challenged by somebody who thinks they know better than me. Okay, so, you like split screen if people have an argument so we can see what each person is saying. I don't know what any of that means either. Clearly, that's my ambition. Is to have somebody to communicate with where I propose a truth and they explain how it can't be right. Something like that. Or how they have a better answer with better evidence. But they're just going to say things like, well, the mathematics works. Yeah, well, not really. See, I'm not opposed to educating people. I don't mean to be offensive. I'm just saying it's not what I'm after. I'm just saying, it's a nice little side effect or something, or but yeah, it's not what I'm after. Well, it's not just me and him, but a good portion of the conversation in the room was with the guy Franklin Ho, who got his name, HU, I think. Who? Anyway, very reasonable sort. Actually, like I said, incredible discipline. He puts up with people who are obnoxiously rude, and he does it very politely. That's something I couldn't do. But anyway, so yeah, most of it was a conversation between us, and these other guys didn't really, you know, they had some stuff to say, but I did make a couple of really good. One guy brought up something, I cut him off right at the knees with a really good argument, and but it was a good, it was an interesting conversation. So I'm just saying, I think they need to order, like have a specific subject, like let's talk about gravity or let's talk about a specific thing. So it was a little bit disorganized in that sense because it doesn't deal with big subjects. It just deals with people's fringe, well, light is a variable speed or ether, so they're big on ether and variable speed for light and that kind of stuff. So it's a little difficult sometimes to blend the subjects, I'd say. But well, anyway, yeah, I don't know, but I don't know why the guy posts the video. So I mean, why he waits a couple of weeks to post them? It's sort of annoying. Um, but I'll ask him why he does that because it is sort of annoying. So anyway, how do they create the machines with their math that work in this universe? Well, I worked in a machine shop, and I'll tell you that most stuff that's invented isn't invented because somebody invented it with mathematics. They invented it by fucking with stuff, you know, seeing what happens, see if it blows up, see if it burns up, see if it does this, see if it does that. And they see there's a relationship between things. And they figure out, oh yeah, instead of using a light emitting diode, we could use a little photovoltaic cell and and they figure out some new way to do it, and it works out. And then they have new theory that's based on. But I'm just saying it's not, you know, I'm not arguing that most math is 2 plus 2 equals 4. Most math is solid, okay? I'm saying most of the laws of physics are solid. The inverse square law is a mathematical concept. It's a solid piece of math. I'm just saying that every formula they write is not a masterpiece. So your delusion that every single formula they create is duplicating reality and is somehow the essence of the universe. I'm saying no, it's not even close. First, they don't have all the variables. And second, they haven't identified them properly and they've called them things they aren't. Why is an angle called a wave? Do you think angles are waves? Sine theta is an angle. Why are they calling it a wave formula? I'm trying to push a specific thought experiment. So let's say there is 80% of force bits between two suns. Oh dear. So you're just going to keep, right, and they're moving towards each other. And for it to be 80%, they would have to be moving incredibly fast because, frankly, that would be a high percentage of force to uh, extract out of the universe. I think you could move a planet 100,000 miles an hour with 1% of the energy in the universe, the force. But whatever, let's just say that's right. Go ahead, fine, play your game. Next. What is the cause of the positive charge of a proton? It's in the nature of its structure. I don't have the physics for that. Nobody does. But let's just say protons are oriented this way and electrons are oriented this way in 3 dimensions. So you have to understand them as 3 dimensional objects. So one of them accepts force that goes this way, and one of them doesn't accept force going this way. So it could be that kind of thing, that it's just the geometry that dictates form. Um, but let's let's make it into something less complicated. Think of a way to, it's a filter. So the idea is if it it's like it's rubber and glue. Okay. Um, how to make it understood that all right, triangles and squares. Now, well, anyway, I don't have off the top of my head, I don't have a metaphor for you. But the point is that if the force bit, a triangle force bit hits a triangle matter bit, it it reflects. If it hits a round one, uh, it goes in and pops out as a triangle. So the point is that I don't want to do this. I've made videos on it, so it's in the overview videos. There's some explanations of the interaction. I've certainly explained it in other videos, um, but there's only there's a slight variation in function. There's only 4 rules. Okay, I mean the black bits reflect off the black things. The black bits leave perpendicular in the red things because they allow red bit and black bits to interact essentially. Red bits can't hit black bits unless they hit a matter bit. but I don't want to. I don't think I need to get into that much detail in the live videos. Uh, let's see. Let's see. What is the cause? Yeah. So it's the same. The positive charge of the proton is the same as the negative charge of the electron, except they're just exactly opposite. Black, red, come on. Not that complicated. It's not what you know, it's what you don't believe in. Well, it's just garbage in. Okay. If you want to have good out, you got to stop the garbage in. So obviously, wrong information is much more corrosive to your intelligence than a lack of information. Not knowing is a lot better than knowing wrong. A credit to you. I find physics interesting. Your explanation is by far the best one. I've always had a hard time with bending space or space fabric, so I would love to see a debate. Yes, likewise. I plan on showing my professor your video once I actually get a grasp on physics. Well, like I said, the one video, if you just do the question video, that would be great. But yes, or one of the overview videos. The last overview video on gravity was pretty good, I thought. I'm pretty much starting at zero at the moment. Been blogging down for the last year with computer science, which I hate. Bog down. I don't even know why they teach computer science unless they're teaching it in the terms of the software stuff. So maybe it's all software now and algorithms. That's a lot of math. But it always seems like a weird description, computer science, just because the basics of computers are almost irrelevant now. The whole way a computer manages the bits is kind of who cares. It's really just about how to write the software now. I'll be honest, I don't know what you're talking about 95% of the time. So once I establish my own physics frame of reference, I'll be interested to see how my professors react to your uh, alternative views. I thought you're already a couple of years into your physics thing. So just thought you'd already be pretty aware of a lot of the concepts. But anyway, yeah, whatever. Fine. Good. I hope I'm alive, in the next year or two. Let's see, is photon emission truly instantaneous? Well, of course it's not. Nothing's instantaneous. Instantaneous is a useless rubbish word from archaic times of not understanding that it's a nonsense word. Or is there a quantum effect of some type that actually brings time into play in some way? Well, whatever. Time doesn't play. Time isn't a dimension. Time is a function. Time is about moving distance and nothing else. Is photon emission truly instantaneous? I guess I don't know why you'd even think somebody thinks it is. Who's arguing that photon emission is instantaneous? I don't even know what that means. I mean, photons are just the release of something that already exists. It's already moving inside the matter. You're just releasing something that's already moving. It's like you have a bird in a cage and there's no perch for the bird to sit on, so he just flies around in the cage. And then you open the door to the cage and the bird flies out. You didn't give the bird anything, you didn't do anything. The bird already had it, he just left. It's not going to be instantaneous. It's going to take him time to go from the middle of the cage to the door of the cage to out of the cage. It's going to take time to do all that stuff. We all know basic physics. An apple falls off a tree, it hits you the fucking ground. It hits the fucking ground. I don't know. I mean, obviously, physics is attempting to know more than that. That's just an observation. That's not even science, really. I mean, you have to do more than see something. You have to pattern recognize. You have to be able to associate one thing with another thing, with another thing, with another thing. So you're not really doing physics. You're not doing even basic physics by just making observations. Observations without connections are useless. Let's see. Um, No, I don't know what that is. Niels Bohr's model says the electron jump instantaneously from one energy level to another. Um, I don't know if that's even true. I don't know how Bohr would know that it happens instantaneously, frankly. So I don't believe that. I don't think there's any established physics that says it happens instantaneously. So um, it's obviously a very short distance. So I obviously happens very, very fast. I just don't think instantaneous would make it any different than non-instantaneous. I don't think we could measure the difference between instantaneous and non-instantaneous in that circumstance. But I certainly don't think an electron ever moves. Electrons never even move the speed of light, let alone instantaneously. So I just don't buy that. I don't think that's a correct description of the facts. Now Niels Bohr was a bit of an idiot, so I mean, maybe he believed in instantaneous because he believed in all lots of wacky. He was like an ether nutter and a lot of, he believed in a magic universe. So, he didn't want to hear any of this Einstein, God doesn't play dice with the universe stuff. He was a real, no, there's random and there's spontaneous and there's, he wasn't much of a physicist in my opinion. But I'll argue that I'm pretty damn confident nothing inside of an atom ever happens instantaneously. No event takes place in instantaneous amounts of time. It doesn't happen. Yeah, he says, yeah, stupid is worse than ignorant. I mean, I'd probably say deluded or some other word, but yeah. Um, Obviously, stupid can be another way of saying ignorant, but delusions are a lot worse than um, what's a consistent way to say lack of information. you know, what's the last thing that you changed your mind on? Oh, wow, that's a toughie. I've obviously refined a couple of theories on this physics. I mean, I had to do the whole charge thing, so I changed the force. So it's even on my website. I do magnetism. I still have a third bit involved, and there's a neutral bit, and there's no need for that. So those are little details, but big picture things. I always hated the idiotic wave model of photons. It never made any sense to me that something's vibrating in two fields and what the fuck, all that crap didn't make any sense. So I can't say there was anything I don't know. I don't know what I can last thing I changed my mind on. Um, Most of my intuitions, I'd say, were pretty correct. That's even when I was less than fully informed on a subject, or less informed than I am, I'm more informed now than I was then. Most of those conclusions have only been confirming my initial perception of either it's I mean, I'm just saying it's I haven't been surprised by too much. Whenever I'm just here supporting you in whatever way I can. I know you don't what's going on, but I still think the topics are interesting. My set of skills aren't the same as yours, even with 118 IQ. Yeah, well, okay. Look, whatever. I find the subject interesting. So even people who are, saying shit, as long as they're saying shit in some sort of intelligent manner, it's can be interesting. Um, I mean, I don't much like the David D. Hilster approach. He's even making it more of a TV commercial. I mean, he's oh, my videos were too long. They were 10 minutes. Oh, yeah, I'm cut down to 6 or maybe 5 or maybe 2. Maybe I can make 3-second videos. And maybe I'll make videos where I just do my introduction and my closing remarks. I mean, I just don't see the point. I really don't want to do Scientology here. It's physics room. It's not has Scientology doesn't have anything to do with science, you know. But I mean, there's obviously every religion or every thing that becomes popular with people does for a reason. I mean, obviously, it's a you know, imagine you're a doctor and you're a doctor. You know, imagine you're Superman, you're Superman. I mean, obviously, it's a fun religion, right? Where you just imagine yourself to be competent and you're competent. You know, that's kind of fun. So I'm sure that's appealing to people. Like, oh, I don't have to go to medical school. I can just imagine that I'm a doctor and it'll work out as long as I'm good and confident that I'm a good doctor. You know, I mean, it is, I know it's not quite that silly, but this whole mind over matter thing is just kind of silly. So, but yeah, it's just silly psychobabble mush. I mean, not everything in Scientology is garbage. I'm just saying some of the stuff where you affirm you can't accomplish anything if you are, it's like playing the piano or something. If you want to be a great piano player, you can't be worried about being a shitty piano player. You have to really just do it. And it's that kind of psychology is very powerful. So once you have this confidence to just do it, you'll do it better. Like walking a tightrope or anything else. If you want to do it well, you can't be worried about falling. You have to be you have to be looking up. You know, you have to be looking at doing it better, not worrying about doing it worse, kind of a thing. So that's like those are those pieces of psychology that are useful, but it's not it's not founded on anything rational. I mean, it's just mumbo jumbo. I mean, we're all obviously doing this science thing in psychological packages, so it has to be interpreted through our psychologies, and that's not good. Okay, so you know there is some mixing of psychology and science, but ideally you really wouldn't mix them. You'd have your, you know, Mr. Spock kind of stuff, and you wouldn't mix it with Kirk kind of stuff. What stuff you find in physics these days? What that means? What's stuff you find in physics these days? I don't know what that means. Good point. I gave up learning to drive because I couldn't quit thinking about the risk of crashing. Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's a real liability. I mean, it's obviously crippled me in my life that I'm way too risk averse, and you know, it's just completely ruined my personal life. You know, but so what? Uh, Too bad. Yeah, old fan sent me Mister. She sent me some Mister Spock, and he was the new Mister Spock, and I was like, oh fuck that! What good is the new Mister Spock? He's like, you know, he's an emo jackass. And then she sent me an original Mister Spock. I don't know what Malza plan. What the hell is that? Manza plan. Why would I bid there? Why would I go there? Uh, anyway, what stuff are you finding interesting these days? Oh, okay. I've just been lamenting how nothing. I can't find anything interesting. It's all horrible. It's such a dismal task. Talking rationality in a sea of shit. I mean, it's just, you know, antimatter everywhere. I'm like the only piece of matter in the universe. Oh, I really hate it. I have to do, I still have some experiments I want to do, and I got to get, more interested in doing that. But yeah, yeah, it's not like I've lost focus, but it's just this task is looking like, you know, a wasted pursuit because there's just, you can't get any traction. I mean, I've taken a theory so far. I mean, I started off with nothing and I've advanced the ball so far. And, well, a guy last week did admit that he thought my theory was better. So, I mean, I am making some progress, I suppose. But, and it's so obvious to me now that I got the right answer. I'm just sitting here saying, oh, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. I got the right answer and I can't do anything with it. What would you use to travel through space? Well, I guess first I'd use a space suit. I mean, kind of obvious. I need one of those. I need oxygen and such. But what do you mean by energy or something? 'Cause that one gets tough. I mean, you need a lot of space is very, very big. You got a long distance to travel, and it's really hard to go very fast. I don't think our bodies would hold up to it, frankly. Have you thought about being more bold? Oh, please. I don't know how I could. Well, I mean, I guess I could make more raggy comments on people's videos or something, I guess. Uh, yeah, well, I can't. I don't do the go out and greet people thing. So, yeah. I mean, it'd be nice if I could walk into a university and just act up or something. But yeah, I can't do that. But the fact is, you should be able to do it online. I mean, I tried to engage with Professor Lewin. I mean, he's one of the few physicists, who actually is approachable. Um, but yeah, he really doesn't want to do this. Let's argue theoretical physics. He just wants to do his math problems and blah blah blah. Let's just do the standard crap over and over and over again. Let's not analyze any of it. I mean, he has a real teacher's psychology. Just keep teaching the same. Put the solar panel on the roof. Don't question why you're putting it on a roof. Just bolt it to the roof. He's just he's rather belligerent and just doing it the old-fashioned, stupid, wrong way. Well, you say climate change expedites uh, extinction. I don't. I think it does exactly the opposite. But fine. I mean, obviously, a warmer planet is more like Jurassic Park. I mean, it's going to accelerate um, metabolism. It's going to make for more bioaggressions. So it's you know. Uh, so I don't think that argument holds. Um, the fact that it might lead to world war and we might nuke the planet, that could help because then we'll turn into an ice box, and that's going to be less life then. Look, Tyler, you're really not being helpful. The subject here isn't ephilism or any of this other stuff, and it certainly isn't being a shut-in isn't an accomplishment. So whatever, just um, yeah, frankly. What is what they call quantum tunneling in transistors? Uh, they're just talking about the fact that it appears that stuff, um, it just has to do with stuff crossing the nucleus of atoms, and it doesn't happen. So I don't know what to metaphor it to. Let's see. It's like the whole idea of light moving slower through glass. The light really doesn't move slower. It just moves a longer path. And so you have to recognize that it's just the path length that matters. And they don't even understand what a nucleus is, in the sense that they don't understand. See, they think there's a strong force inside the nucleus holding the protons together, and it's actually a very weak force. The protons are able to be close together because there's an electron in between them, and the electron is letting all the pressure escape, and that's why the protons can be closer to each other, so there's no reflective energy. So it's ironic, but they think there's a strong force when it's an incredibly weak force. So where they think the nucleus is this hard thing to get through, it's really easy to go right through it. Have 4 audible credits. Any must reads to suggest. Oh, I wish. Sure. I'm not much on reading anyway because the books are like really long and they have like 2 pages of good shit. It's like Schopenhauer's like that. It's like there's 3 pages of worth reading and the rest of it is just yammer, talk, talk, yammer, yammer. And you know, so yeah, I don't have any suggestions, reading suggestions. I haven't read a lot of dissident science books, but what I have read online, like Ken Wheeler's book, it's just really not worth the trouble. I mean, the fake assumptions, they're just, they bring up experiments that are just completely bogus, and, so there's so much garbage out there. What would be the best method of extinction of wild animals? I suppose it's making more microorganisms and more, if you can make more small things to kill all the big things, then the big things can't exist, something like that. But yeah, no, I mean, the best weapon you have is cold. If you can get rid of the heat, the big animals can't survive. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I think physically we can blow the whole planet to pieces. So I think we could eliminate life that way. Yeah, well, obviously antibiotics have their limited effect, so depends on the pathogens, of course. So you can always make a flesh-eating disease or something. I hope to bait your whatever pornographic images from your site because I think that is better. Very interested. Mohammed. So you're some sort of Muslim, you know. Does it scare you? Is that what happens? You get scared. Scared. Let's see. I wish they wouldn't do this. They give me the option to undo something and it sticks something in the way where I can't see anything. I hate notifications. God, I wish they'd never invented notifications. Then all small things get strong for big things. I'm just saying, big thing. Brains are complicated. It's a big organism thing, brains. I'm only worried about brains. So if you can wipe out all the brains, I'm happy. So have things that eat brains and everything's fine. Well, look, I failed physics in high school, so but to me, it's a really interesting subject. But obviously, I didn't like the way he taught it either. In high school, I was already protesting, um, and I was also in love with the girl partner I had, and I was, a pretty good drug user, so that didn't help any. But I mean, I really shouldn't have failed. Um, And technically, I argued that I didn't fail, and I did get it changed to a D. But anyway, and but I really hated it. The physics teacher was a little putz, a little bow tie wearing little creep. So we didn't get along well. Um, but physics is an interesting. I mean, I wish I had. I mean, I got distracted in life too much. I had work and all this other stuff, and you kind of, you have to have leisure time to do physics. You really have to think about what's being said, and you have to think about the experiments and think about what's happening. It's just, takes, I've done a lot of work in the last 7 years to acquire a sense of it. To really get a sense of it, you really have to sit there for a while and look at all the pieces moving around, and you have to get an idea of how they're tied together and what makes things sticky and what makes this happen. There's a lot of moving parts, so it's a lot of stuff to organize. So physics can be really unappealing if all you're doing is looking at the mathematical side of it, or just looking at the density of the evidence or the complexity of the experiments, or it can just turn you off because it's not very accessible. But once you get it, it's like once you know how to play chess, chess is sort of fun, but when you're starting out, you're like, you know what, I have to think 10 moves ahead. That's no fun. I don't want to do that. I often quote you when you said, let the matter dance as it wishes, but once you start dancing on pain receptors, then there's a certain value to be wasted. Yeah, I don't remember saying that, but good enough. Why not? Sounds like a meism. LOL, but it seems to me to be an effect of the matter complexity. This is, you're always a little dicey, but it seems to be an effect of the matter complexities, the brain. Complexities, that's what it says. The brains. Yeah, I don't know what that is. The brain's just a computer. It's just moving bits around. Um, let's see. I read that you are an internet lawyer now. Oh, another funny person. Ha ha ha. Not my words, just when I typed in Mendham on Google, it came also you must have lived in Borough, New Jersey. Yeah, Mendham Borough. People think you live in middle of nowhere. Who cares where I live? But whatever. Why would it make a difference? Do you think I give a shit where you live? I really just couldn't care less. My neurons don't say, oh, I got to know where he lives. No, it never even occurs to me to give a shit. I'm doing a computer science physics joint major. Okay. I decided to do it all of I decided to do all of the computer science courses before I start physics so I can focus on it and think about it all the time. Okay. Yeah, I know though. Look, I know you have to do the calculus and the math shit and all that stuff first. I know the first years of physics are pretty unpleasant, but I just think still, if you're 2 years in or whatever, 3 years or whatever you are in, I guess I'm just not. So you're almost ready to get a computer science degree and you haven't really started the physics part. It's just hard to believe that the two aren't a little bit like they weren't required to take some of the physics courses. But anyway, it's okay. Whatever. I don't know how college works. I mean, college might be just retarded as solar panels on roofs. I take my first physics class this summer, Physics 1 and 2, which Introduction to Mechanics, Electricity, Magnetism, and some Thermodynamics. Yes, well, some of those are fun. I mean, the magnetism is fun. So you'll when you start looking at that, when you start thinking about the electron and proton as the monopole, and you start thinking about the magnet as a filter, you're going to get it. It's going to make so much more sense to you. It is still fair to say there's only 4 fundamental interactions. Well, I'm just saying there's no point in saying there's only four fundamental interactions when I'm arguing that clearly they've completely misdiagnosed the interactions between electrons and protons. They have no clue. So, I mean, you can say there's gravity and there's magnetism, but this idea that you have other forces gets kind of dicey because, frankly, you really don't. Magnetism is the nuclear forces. Matter likes to make brains computers, it seems. I don't know why matter likes to do it. That doesn't make much sense. There was only one neuron created, so there's not any parallel brain functions in any form of life anywhere we know of. So I'm just saying you have one time a neuron was created, and that neuron you know, uh, was very successful as a cell form, like livers. I mean, would you really say the universe likes to make livers? I mean, because all the animals that have a brain have a liver. I'm just saying it doesn't make much sense to do that. To this, I know you have an answer, but you used to say that black on black interactions don't make any difference. Well, that's only the force bits on the force bits. Obviously, the whole point of what I'm arguing is the force doesn't interact with the force interacts with the matter bit. So black on black matters in the sense of electron on electron force. So that's why I've tried to make this black bit matter bit. Yes, black on black matter bit, even if they interact, you couldn't see it because it's a kinetic interaction. You can't tell whether things hit each other or they miss each other. Same universe, either way. If they hit each other, same universe as if they miss each other. Let's see. You ever read Ed Lieben? Blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't know if I did because I don't recognize names ever, but whatever. Magnet currents. I don't know what that means. Ed Lieben's magnetic currents. I don't even know what that is, so sorry. Yeah, I haven't read it, obviously. Right. Black force bits on black matter bits does make a difference, yes. Because one is a force bit and the other is a matter bit. Yes, they have individual functions. The force bits just go in a straight line at the speed of light. The matter bits interpret force bits. So they get hit by a black bit, they reflect it. They get hit by a red bit, they excrete it perpendicularly. Stop reacting to your comments. Fuck you. Whatever that means. I mean, it's just a stupid thing to say. Stop reacting. Your comments either wait to post or settle down. Oh, he's saying that to mindless marbles. I don't, he's been all right so far, and the comments aren't moving that fast, so what's the point? But okay, you can complain about the other commenters. That's all right. Go ahead, argue among yourselves. What caused color shift in your model? Could you describe? Well, I've been over it 4 million times. It's like a moving car. If you have paint and you just plop a blob of paint out of the back of the car, you can see that if the car is moving, the blobs of paint will be further apart from each other. To do the forward example, you have to use something where you're dropping like a little wind-up duck, okay, that moves 90 miles an hour, let's say. And so say the car's going 30 miles an hour and you throw a little wind-up duck down. And it goes 90 miles an hour. Well, if I'm moving forward, the distance between the ducks is going to end up being closer because I keep shortening the distance. I'm catching up to the duck. Okay, I'm going 30 miles an hour, it's going 90 miles an hour, so it's only leaving me at 60 miles an hour. So the distance will be shorter between them. So you can see that forward gets shorter, backwards gets longer. Okay. Let's see, where was he? Where the hell is it? Oh, nothing changed. Yeah, there's no comments. Oh, okay, I get it. I mean, if you think about the photons are really between the electrons. Okay, so all the electromagnetic spectrum is made out of the black force, the electron force. That force is trapped between electrons. So just think about it bouncing back and forth between the electrons. The electrons are close together, you'll get an X-ray. Electrons are further apart, you'll get, infrared light. So it just has to do with the distance between the electrons. And if the electrons are moving while they release the force, you can kind of understand that if the ping pong ball is going this way and then it has to bounce back this way, it's going to be at a different frequency because of the motion. All right. Okay, so more hands-on demos upcoming. Yes. All right. So anyway, probably enough. I think I'm getting fatigued enough to say the hell with it. Appreciate the participation. Thank you. And such. Yeah, now I got the hiccups. And I'll keep doing this, and but I have to do some writing. I have to really start. I have to be more disciplined. I hate that. I just. I don't know why I hate writing so much. I used to be a fairly good writer. Let's see. In the document Magnetic Currents, he explains magnets are made up of two particles that are extremely small. Well, I mean, he's got the particle part right, I guess, but I'd have to, so I guess I have to go look this up, right? Let me find this name again. Ed Liebens, Liebens, I don't know what the fuck that is. All right, but I'll look it up. Well, I'll try to. I'll imagine I might try to. But anyway, okay, so let's see what I think. I just got a construction job, 23 days and 7 out long shifts. Got to do it while I can. Money's, money's good. Oh, excellent. I wish I could find some work. Yeah, it's been a little dry here. I mean, I used to have at least some, I could make some part-time blah, 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 but it's, been a little, but anyway, I'm managing, so I shouldn't complain. I live in it's a really weird circumstance. Just everything's been really strange. The people that own the property, I rent a cottage on, they're selling the property, but they're not selling it aggressively, so they're not getting it sold, and they haven't fixed the other places, and they're falling apart, and it's just kind of a weird circumstance. But it's been nice for me because not too many neighbors and peaceful and nice and blah blah blah. So I shouldn't complain about anything. Anyway, until next time and such. But money is a hassle. But a $1 sound card. $1. Yeah, $1. I have to go buy some more. Okay, so anyway, till next time and such and so forth and whatnot. I'm gonna close this and stop broadcast. I can handle that. Unfortunately, the video is reversed, so my think sign doesn't say think. I don't know why it's doing that. It wasn't reversed before, but anyway, just complaining. So till the next time and such.